I'd like to welcome you to the BlackUSA.News morning show. My name's Donnie Glover, and I will be your host today. How's that working, Kenny? No. I'm not sure, big brother. Bear with us a moment here. Bear with us a second, folks. I learned a long time ago to say it will go wrong. Okay, let's try this again. Mr. Henry Harrison.
What'd you say, Donnie?
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Brown. How you doing? I couldn't hear Mr. Brown.
Mike, you're a little. Yeah, I'm not sure what it is with Mr. Brown. Okay, how are you?
Yeah, your sound is coming in a little muffled, Donnie. I'm assuming you asked how I'm doing, man.
Okay, Kenny Brown.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me? I'm coming in on the phone.
Okay, can you cut your audio, your video on?
Yeah.
Mr. Haney, Bob Shield, how are
Can
you?
you hear me? Are we
Yes.
good? All right, man. Good. Good morning, Mr. Michael. And
Good
Mr.
morning,
Robert
Mr. Brown.
Shield.
Good morning, Mr. Shields.
Mute button, Mr. DeShield. Unmute that mic, Mr. DeShield. There we go.
Stop telling me what to do first thing in the morning. You know how
That's how I felt
I'm
about,
like that.
that's how I felt about Mr. Haney. Mr. Haney actually told me to get up early. I said I was. Okay, last night we had the first look at these gubernatorial candidates.
Don't ask me any question about that because I didn't watch it.
Kenny, did you see the forum last night?
I didn't see it, but I tell you what, I haven't seen all. Well, that was the Black Caucus last night, but I have seen them in action in one or two of the other forums. But they had the whole crew there last night, man. Even the Republicans showed up. And what was it about?
Most of them.
About the Black agenda, right?
Yeah. All right, well, let's slide over to Mr. Haney. Mr. Haney.
Yeah, Donnie, I got a chance to watch it, and it was very, very interesting. I watched the entire thing, although I focused on only a few of the candidates in terms of coming back to you this morning. You know, Daryl Barnes made some compelling remarks in the beginning to lay the foundation of what his expectations were of the candidates relative to a Black agenda. And it would be great to show that clip, you know, whenever you feel it's appropriate to do so, just so that we understand how it is. Huh? Can we do that?
What did he say that was so compelling?
Yeah, Daryl Barnes' opening remarks. Can we show that to the viewers, Donnie? Just give them a sense of how Mr. Barnes laid out what his expectation was for the candidates last night. And I want to show a bit of that.
I believe that 90% of the room are full of Black. Let me try this once again. How is everybody doing? It's a little bit better. You know, there is no Daryl Barnes without my parents, but then there's no Delegate Barnes without my wife. And then there is no Chairman Barnes without my colleagues. So I would ask that my colleagues come to the stage and stand with me.
And this is short, Donnie, so just a few more seconds.
You know,
There go your boy Ben Brooks, Kenny.
I wanted them to stand with me because I think it's important that we put things in context. Because when you start talking about a Black agenda means something different to everyone in the room. Everyone has a different disposition on what they believe is the Black agenda. But in 2018, it was myself along with former Delegate Cheryl Glenn, who sat with members of the foundation and my good friend Darius A. Stanton, who came up with the Maryland Black Agenda 2030 was a roadmap that was created that whoever is governor will be able to put in perspective our needs and our concerns to the year 2030. Fast track that to 2020, where the Speaker of the House said, "The hell with a 2030 plan, I'm gonna create a Black agenda of today." And that Black agenda of today really focuses on a couple of things. And one of the main thing is equity and inclusion. For some, it means something different once again, but for most of us in this room, it means ownership. And you cannot speak about equity and inclusion in medical cannabis and sports betting and other opportunities in the state of Maryland without talking about ownership. And it struck me during the Labor Day weekend, I kind of binge watched and I watched the movie Godfather of Harlem. And some would say, well, what the hell they got to do with the night? But I want to put it in context where
I'm on the show with
as
Donnie.
I was watching The Godfather of Harlem, and Rashawn, you may remember this because
I'm good.
I gave this speak once before, where Malcolm X was talking to Bumpy Johnson. I don't know how many of you all watched the movie, but Malcolm X said to Bumpy Johnson, he said, if you're going to invoke a little politics, then you must also invoke a little gangster.
Mm.
And it took me a second to figure out what he was talking about. And I believe that we want a governor who is bold and courageous, that's not afraid to have a little gangster in him when he starts talking about what he's going to do with the Black agenda.
Okay. I guess that set the tone.
That's on for you, Mr. Haney.
Yes, sir. That's it. Thank you, Donnie, for letting me share that. Thank you for letting me share that, Donnie. But I think that Delegate Barnes set the table for the expectation of the candidates, and I think for us it's a matter of whether they met his expectations. Some seemed to do so, but many were very disappointing. And where I would start off with is the fact that the Legislative Black Caucus asked by the September 15th for candidates to submit their Black agenda. Rashawn Baker mentioned that he's still working on his and he's got a few days, but he's going to have it. Wes Moore said he'll have his by Monday. The only person that raised their hand, surprisingly, and said, here's mine, my report card's here, my homework assignment is done for you all in writing that you can publicize and hold me accountable to. Guess who, Donnie?
The white man.
Peter Franchot. Peter Franchot.
Now,
So
Peter Franchot also left. Peter Franchot also left early.
Yeah, he left early, and people supported that, just as they supported Rashawn Baker's wife passing in September, because his wife had just had surgery that day, and he said he had to go home to tend to his wife, and people seemed to be gracious about that as him having to leave. But I only make that for a point, Donald, just to lay our foundation of a conversation.
Okay, we're sorry, but everybody else stayed.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to get into how they articulated their platforms, if Peter Franchot and what he was talking about, I noticed that some candidates, like Tom, look at one note.
Yeah, Peter read his. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. Peter read his. Joe King was passionate. Tom Perez spoke from the head, not the heart, talked more about the Obama administration. Wes Moore felt the need to lay a foundation of credibility. So, the most compelling thing that I gathered for him was the fact that his grandfather was not able to leave anything for generational wealth behind, and the fact that his mandate in life was to work, to create generational wealth for Black people, but no formal Black agenda. So, you know, you had more, you know, and so I saw these folks, as Bob did on Wednesday, in their casual wear, etc. And I felt compelled to wear a tie today to cover up the conversation that they had, as well as they covered up. Because, you know, one thing that was very interesting and profound to me, that the one with the most power did not have a suit and tie, or didn't have a tie on. You know, they all felt compelled 24 hours later to put a different face on what they were saying of credibility. And I think that we do that wholesale and dress things up.
You're talking around. Who are you talking about? Who?
I'm talking about all the candidates, man. I'm talking about every single candidate on that form, okay? And I'm talking about in comparison to Daryl Barnes, because we really, for a change, have some power. We really have power and the ability to hold someone accountable, but are we going to hold the right person accountable and get behind the right person? And I want to show some data from 2018 later that shows that we need to take a look at historical elections to understand who has a chance to win this thing and who's going to win this thing. The data does not lie, and follow the money.
Okay, Mr. Haney, it sounds like you have already picked a winner.
No, I haven't picked a winner, Donnie. What I've looked at is data to say that it only makes.
Does your data suggest a winner?
Yeah, my data definitely suggests a winner.
And who is that right now? Haney?
So my data suggests that it's going to be extremely difficult to overcome a candidate that has already been proven in statewide elections that won with more votes in the last election in his position than the governor won with in 2018. Peter Franchot got 1.5 million votes, okay? And then you can go to the primary elections, and let me pull this data up so you can see it.
Hey, is this a camp? Is this a camp? Are we making campaign speeches now? What are we doing?
Absolutely not, Mr. DeShields. I said data. I said data, right? And it's only data that we look at. And I said, this is interesting, because I like Wes Moore. And I think Wes Moore has a compelling message, very compelling message. I think Tom Perez brings some things to the table. It'd be interesting to see how these candidates lay out their platforms and the voters take interest. But if I can just show you something, right? Relative to some of what I had a chance to look at. And let's go to the primary results for 2018. For Lieutenant Governor, you had 210,000 votes totally. But let's go to the Democrats. You have Rashawn Baker, who's in the race currently, 171,000 votes. You had the eventual winner, Ben Jealous, that won in the Democratic Party, and that's where this check is. His name's not here, for a total of 231,895 votes. And that was pretty interesting to me, in terms of how Democrats did not really come out for the primary election and support candidates, you know. And then when you look at the money, it's even more compelling. Peter Franchot, on the other hand, because he has a political base, and believe me, you know, I don't want to have a horse in this game, but when we talk about a Black agenda and who we feel can carry our agenda forward, this is what they look at. And this is what they decide when they put their money, who has the power base and the ability to get something done and get something through. Because I tell you, Wes is very intriguing to me, but the question becomes, is Wes electable? So long answer, Mr. DeShield.
That sounds like the discussion we're going to have here.
No.
And even though you said you haven't picked a horse, you like a horse.
Yeah,
you like a horse.
Yes, sir.
And if you're at the betting, and if you're at the betting window right now, You're telling me you're betting for Franco
I'm going for
based on your,
Secretariat.
based
I'm
on
putting
his,
my money on Secretariat.
no, Secretary. Okay. But
Yeah,
in any case,
Secretariat.
you're absolutely right. And you were looking at the data and you're looking at numbers. But you know, let's be fair with numbers, because you were talking about the amount of votes that Franco had gotten in the past. Well, how many people were running against Franco in the past, and who were they? You know, that has a lot to do with how those numbers were taken, end up there. So I I'm watching it now, and again, the only people watching and paying attention to this kind of stuff is guys like ourselves, people who are plugged into politics. We're the guys sitting on the side, and we're watching them. But I'm telling you, this race really doesn't start until next year. Right now, all these guys are doing now is running around collecting money, which they should be, because money. I tell you what, money doesn't guarantee you a win, but not having money guarantees you a loss. So,
Absolutely.
they're out there doing what they need to do right now.
You
Collect
know
money.
what? You know what was interesting, Mr. Brown and Mr. Shields and Donnie, that I looked at as well. That there are only really 3 or 4 actual candidates that have registered
Yeah,
with the state election board to run.
yeah.
You know, and so I'm like, wow, man, are they're committed, and so you know there's going to be
Well,
some
well,
fallout.
Michael, we know, what do we got? 9 candidates out there now.
Yes,
Well, first of all, 9 candidates really aren't running for jobs.
right.
Probably 4 or 5 of them are running for jobs, right?
I
They
say
just want to
three.
be in the mix. That's right. There's only 3 running, right? And the bottom line is, as long as they register by that date, and I believe that is it February 22nd.
Yes.
Yeah, February 22nd. That's when it really matters. So it's an interesting thing for us to have the conversation now. But um, when this campaign
Well,
starts, we're going to see where the people really are and what they believe. I'm. Here's what I'm betting. I'm betting. You know how it always starts. The first horse out the gate, he takes the lead, right? We all think this is going to be the winning horse. But as the race goes on, as the rest of them start coming around the turn, it's that last quarter length, it counts, and that's when you see that first one fading, and you get other horses that some come right up and
Well,
pass
well
them by.
let me
So
let
everybody
me
loves, everybody keeps saying Franco right now, but I'm like you say, he's just the first horse out the gate.
well
Does he have the stamina to go ahead, Bob?
no, go ahead, Kenny, finish. I apologize.
Does
I
he
just
have the
can't.
stamina? Does he have the stamina to get it done? And I'm not sure. I'm not sure on that.
All right.
But go ahead.
I like to pick up where Chairman Barnes left off with
Right.
the Godfather of Harlem, which I am absolutely addicted to.
Ooh.
The last episode was titled "The Ballot or the Bullet." The ballot or the bullet. That to me defines the struggle within our community. See, to implement that means you got to change the identity of the people that are making the decisions. That's what ballot or bullet means. That
Right.
means no matter what the data shows, we've got to put some people in that position that look more like us and that think like us and that we can trust to be like us. That struggle to me is more important. Our cohesiveness around those issues is more important than who wins this time, because we know there will be another election. But if we form the right kind of allegiance and loyalty and unity among ourselves, we will reach a day when we can change the people who hold the highest office. The problem with, I think, looking only at the data is that ultimately it presumes no change in the real leadership. It doesn't. It predicts, and in fact is based upon the notion that those in power today, the names may change, but the identity will remain the same. I reject that notion out of hand, as did Malcolm, as shown in Ballots or the Bullets. I'm not a statistician. I'm an outlier. I know nothing about politics. I didn't even watch the debate last night, but I know this. I know that if we stick together as a people, we can turn around Maryland the same as Stacey Abrams helped to turn around Georgia. I know that we stick together as a people. We don't always have to get up every morning presuming that the world will always be run and administered by those who occupy the office today. I live for the day when collectively we wake up with that reality, with that objective in mind. Which means I don't. Anyway, I stop there.
You know, Mr. Shields, I absolutely agree with you.
Hold up, Mr. Haney. Hold up, Mr. Haney. Mr. Haney, this isn't Sunday night. This is Friday morning. I got a question. You have handicapped this race without even knowing Peter Francho's running mate.
So Donnie, what I have done is show the importance of data, be it for Wes Moore, be it for Joe King, be it for Tom Perez, is our ability to look at and anticipate and form strategies because we've done homework. Okay, we can sit here and have all the philosophical conversations that we want, you know, but predictability, okay, whether it ultimately prevails, whether it ultimately prevails or not, for me to sit up and look at and say, look at these patterns that have happened in the past 3 or 4 elections. Is there a strategy here for Wes Moore or Joe King or Tom Perez? You know, Peter Francho came out again, okay, because Rashawn Baker has picked his version, to your point. Peter Francho came out and said again that he's going to pick a black woman. And that seemed to be enough for everyone to clap and say, okay. I want to know who it's going to be.
As Mr. DeShields has said time in this game on this show, not everybody your color is your right. Black. And how much power will a lieutenant governor candidate have?
Under the Maryland Constitution, none.
None.
The lieutenant governor has no assigned duties. In fact, you can't even find an office address for him in the directory. In Maryland, the lieutenant governor does no more or less than what may be assigned from time to time by the governor. That's it.
Which is crucial.
That doesn't change.
Yeah.
Can you see letting a woman tell him what to do?
I'm sorry, what's that?
No.
Can you see Peter Francho letting a black?
No.
I can't answer that because I don't know the man. I don't know whether I don't know the man personally, so I can't speak to that.
Well, I can speak to the fact that for whatever reason, whenever white folks want to talk to black people, they figure all they have to do is find a black person and stand them beside them, which is supposed to validate them and say, okay, he's
okay.
He's all right. So that, I hear this idea of, he's real quick to raise his hand and say, I'm going to pick a black woman. Okay, I get it. That message is not the white people. That message is the black people. As if now I picked a black woman, so you can trust me.
I think we're smart enough than that. We're smarter than that by now. We understand that game. I mean, look at Joe Biden and look at Kamala Harris. When's the last time
you say we understand that game, but they keep playing it. They keep playing it. So they don't believe
play what we allow. Some things are on us to understand and to not accept.
A lot of it is on us, Michael. A lot of it is on us.
Yeah, I mean, Kamala Harris has disappeared off the face of the earth. At least Boyd Rutherford was able to have votes that counted for hundreds of millions of dollars when Hogan let him sit in for him multiple times on the Board of Public Works when he was sick, and then he trusted him enough to say, hey, we're going to give you some real duties to do. And so it comes down to, like Donnie said, to the person. And is Peter that type of person? I don't know. I know his assistant state controller that's not elected is a black female down there, and she seems to carry a considerable amount of power. We got to go look in the nooks and crannies at stuff and understand how things work. Like Tom Perez, oh my, Tom Perez was very interesting in his comments. You know, just about every one of the white candidates last night referred to Martin Luther King. None of the black ones did. You know, and I guess that was their point of legitimacy in saying Martin Luther King, Martin Luther King. I know Martin Luther King. That was very interesting to see.
All right. Well,
They did allude to Dr. King. Very good point.
they did. Okay.
So that shows how much
Yeah.
they don't know black people.
But the king that they referred to was not the king in his latter years. They were talking about the younger king. That in his latter years, that king was a lot more like Malcolm than he was like himself in prior years. What I'm suggesting is, yes, I don't fault Peter Franchot or anybody else who's other than black folk in a race where the votes of black folk are not only necessary but obviously critical. I don't fault them for trying to find some angle to try to attack or attract and sustain the black. I mean, that's the nature of the beast. I'm not going to fault them for that. And I do disagree somewhat with my brother Haney about how smart we become. I still think as a people, we spend more time picking the brand of toilet paper than we do actually determining on the merits who we are to support. But that again, that comes with time. That comes with time, sophistication, and education. Our problem in our community, we don't have enough outlets like yours, Donnie, where we can provide the foundation and the facts and the evidence that people can make a decision on. So it all goes by personality. I said yesterday or day before that there's a fourth branch of government. It's called the media. I suspect that the media as a whole has much more to do with who gets elected than anything any of the candidates say, because they're the ones who interpret what the candidates say for the rest of the population.
I absolutely agree, Mr. DeShield. I think for someone like Wes Moore to look at the data relative to geography, I was shocked when I saw it myself. Baltimore County had almost a quarter less votes cumulatively in the general election than Montgomery and Prince George's County carried. I was surprised at the number of votes in Prince George's and Montgomery County. Doesn't always add up to the population, but it shows why Rashawn Baker decided to go to a Hispanic or Venezuelan woman, even if she was only a city council woman, in choosing his running mate.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Michael, I like your approach of you're leaning on this data stuff a lot, but and you talk about Franco and then you talk about Westmore, but what data was Donald Trump looking at when he decided to run?
Well, we know that Donald Trump was shocked that he won.
Yeah,
but the data
would not have predicted that. The data would not have predicted that win based on your argument at looking at the data. Data went out the window when it came time for that election there. So when we look at Franco, who's won 3 or 4 elections, and you say he's got all these votes, and you'll say you got somebody like Westmore, who probably no one's ever voted for, cast one vote for. I don't think it means as much as you think it means when it comes down. Each election is almost unique in itself. So we just got to let this one play out. Let's let the horses run.
Yeah, well, I don't disagree with you, Mr. Brown. I don't disagree.
By default, both Trump and Franco, there is Baltimore County has only had a white male county executive. That's the date.
That's it.
That's the date.
And Donnie, we're going through something out here in Baltimore County right now. The new census number comes out and it says Baltimore County, 47% minority, right? That's non-white people or people who claim who would check the box as being something other than white. And out of that 47%, 30% of them are black folks. And now we're looking at a county council that has 7 seats sitting there, and we only have 1 black County council person. And now the discussion has been, why shouldn't we have more than one? And now redistricting is in play big time, because just like they created the 10th district, because up until the 10th district, a black couldn't get elected in Baltimore County. And I don't know, if we didn't have a 10th district, we would have a black elected in Baltimore County. So when they took and created that district, they packed it with enough black folks in it to guarantee a black to be elected. Okay, now the argument has come around full circle. How do we get another black elected? Does it always have to be a packed district to make it happen?
Well, let me pose this to you, Kenny. Out there, you have the Muslims,
right?
And the last I checked, but Aisha Khan is high up on the list of who's to be next in a position, right?
Well, I'll tell you what, she did well in 2018, but because she did well, it brought more South Asian into the election process. So now you may see that same type of thing play there that sometimes happens with us, where her constituencies inside her community are now split, and there's other candidates running. So she did, and I remember that race very closely, because we were all kind of shocked by it. You had 5 people running for the House of Delegates in District 44, and 4 of them were male, because it was Charles Signor, Aaron Barnett, Renee Hart, and who was the Barry Chat, and then Aisha Khan. Now, the significance of that, it was 4 males and only 1 female. Aisha Khan, South Asian, Muslim female, and she came in 3rd place. Charles Signor and Pat Young came in 1 and 2. She came in 3. And it kind of shocked us all, because we didn't see that happen. But now we're in 2022, that election, guess what? Now there's 5 females running for the House of Delegates. 1 white, 2 black, and then you have 2 South Asian women running, Aisha Khan and Shazia Shah. So see how each election becomes, it's a different election. Will she do as well this time around as she did the last time when she was running with 4 men? Now she's running against 4 other women. So we're going to see how that plays. But you're right, they're a very active community out there right now, and they're coming.
If the Asians were able to get past, they don't have the numbers. When you look at the Pakistanis, is she Pakistan? Well, my point is, you have minority groups, Muslim groups, Pakistanis, Koreans, and according to the voter roll, the Latino is still a minority. That we have the numbers and we can't get what we want. We can't get a black governor. We can't get a black U.S. senator. We have the numbers. We've got our own. There's something psychological going on.
Oh, yeah. When you say we have the numbers, what does that mean, Donnie? Because when I look at the database of numbers, it's what's intriguing is that we don't, particularly when we have 9 candidates running in a primary election that usually is very low participation in, and the numbers don't speak with 9 candidates to 1 candidate, i.e. Westmore, i.e. Rashawn Baker, being able to get minimally the 300,000 votes necessary based on the past elections to win the primary, unless there's an uprising or something compelling happens that make black voters come out to where they haven't in primaries before.
I couldn't agree with you more. And though that is the black agenda. that is precisely what needs to happen, and that is what has to happen, or I think can be encouraged to happen by the speaker's so-called Black agenda. And one of the hardest working man in show business, you're gone now, had two slogans in one of his songs that I've never forgotten. One is, "I don't know karate, I know Karazer," but the other is, "I ain't asking nobody to give me nothing. Open up the door, I get it myself." Open up the door, I get it myself. The candidate that 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 focuses upon and articulates the right of the Black community to compensation, right, versus social programs will address an issue that may very well excite the community. There's a debt. I keep saying it, and I'll say it as long as I got the breath. There's a debt that this country, not white folk, this country owes a debt to Black folk. Plain as, until that you pay that bill, you can stop every social program. You can stop Medicaid. I don't care about, pay your bill. Just pay your bill, and I'm okay with that. The candidate who will espouse, who articulate that issue, and who can articulate it from the heart, will be the one who gets that Black vote out, those Black folk out to vote. And with that vote, even if they can't win, we can stop somebody else from winning. And we know that's for sure.
Nobody talked about reparations last night. Nobody.
Well, as I said a couple of days ago, and since we, I don't know whether we're drawing straws or not. Of the candidates that are there, the one that I think has come closest in the best position to articulate that issue, frankly, is Wes Moore. Unless he's willing to embrace that issue, he's going to lose a lot of support. Well, I don't know how much support he thinks I am to him, but he's going to lose me for sure. That is, Donnie, we've got to stop allowing other folk to define our interests as a giveaway, as a social program, as an add-on, or we're going to give you part of what we own. No, you don't own it. This is my country too. That's what I got to teach my children. And that hope, that sense of obligation is what turns despair into hope. And that's what needs to happen, in my humble opinion.
Well, you say, Mr. Haney, nobody talked about reparations last night.
Or education, with the exception of Wes Moore. Like you said, if we're in the baseball season, was your quote yesterday, and that was a home run that they missed. When you talked about the substance of education, I have an excerpt of Wes Moore, because Wes Moore is intriguing. He's intriguing. He made some powerful comments, but at the end of the day, is he electable? But no one talked about education. No one talked about reparations. Everyone talked about housing. They talked about small business, and they appeased the audience. But what about the audience over on the Eastern Shore? What will they say about them? How do you balance a budget giving Blacks all that they said that they would give, and then to what the expectations of environmental issues, et cetera, across the Bay Bridge, they appease those people. So that's what's to watch and compare. What do they tell everybody else once they leave our room?
Some attention has been brought to. How can you talk about Black people and not talk about the fact that Maryland is what? Maryland incarcerates a lot of Black people.
Oh.
System.
Well, only one candidate addressed that issue last night.
Well, Mr. Haney, you still haven't addressed the 800-pound gorilla in the room. The 800-pound gorilla in the room is Montgomery County. Now, I know you know But Tom Perez is from Montgomery County. John King is from was a slave down there. And then who's the other one? Perez, John King,
Francho.
Francho.
Yeah, so Montgomery County has changed to a heavy Spanish population, which is why Rashawn Baker felt the need to pick a Venezuelan running mate, because he knows, he's looked at the data. I could tell he's looked at the data when he sees 700,000 potential voters of the Democratic Party between his county, Prince George's County, and Montgomery County. And if he takes Montgomery County, he believes it's going to be because of that heavy Hispanic vote population there. Peter, I don't know. Peter is so conservative. I think that Peter, you know, he can't take Montgomery County for granted. He just can't, because the people down there are a little bit more liberal, progressive to me, and they see Peter sometimes on the Eastern Shore or Western Maryland with Hogan, and that bothers people in Montgomery County.
Do you believe in Sherman Baker can carry Prince George's County?
Say it again.
I said, do you believe that Baker can carry Prince George's County?
I don't. I don't.
So the atrocious education of Black kids down there that he oversaw, maybe he can. But how can you look at a leader that has the second worst county in the state for education and say there's a credibility there to be electable?
Right. So who's the fresh face? Who's the fresh piece? You know, Francho, he's got his baggage as being considered more conservative than probably, especially in his own backyard, and in Prince George's County would be for. I'm looking at Rashawn Baker. He has his baggage, right? They all have records. And see, and I'm one who believes now that sometimes these records don't help you at all. They hurt you. And that's what allows fresh faces to come in, because you don't have any of those kind of things to tie to an individual. It says, hey, this is a fresh start. This is a new idea. And let's go with it.
I agree with you, Mr. Brown. With an educated voting population, I absolutely agree with you. I think that what my references are is to the Democratic primary. I think that if Kelly Schultz is the eventual winner of the Republican primary, then all of a sudden, you know, all bets are off in terms of what the opportunities are for Peter Francho. So let me distinguish in terms of the next governor versus the Democratic nominee and what that may look like against a Republican nominee. But if Peter could bet on one thing, if he is the eventual Democratic nominee and Wes Moore can influence and raise the money, because I think that Wes is going to have a strong showing, then Peter has a better chance of crossover Republicans because of his conservative nature and what he did in working with Hogan.
Except for he just got to get past the primary.
He's got to get past the primary. And based on his voting base and the number of people that usually vote in Democratic primaries, I don't see that as a hard obstacle. I think it's for the other candidates to figure out how to get the voting base out and how to overcome his numbers, because he's going to get 200,000 or 300,000 votes because he's been a statewide official. My apprehension is that we aren't going to come out and look at this as a significant election and back the Wes Moores, take a look at the Joe Kings, take a look at the Tom Perez's in any form or fashion, because we believe that this is a critical election for us and we're going to roll over. And that's going to hurt Wes Moore. Wes Moore he's got to motivate the base of Black voters in Prince George's County, Baltimore County, and the brown people in Montgomery County.
And I think if I may, I think we got to start defining some terms and not presume that we all mean the same thing when we use the same word. I don't know today what a conservative is. I don't know today what a liberal is, but I could tell. But by what I read and hear, conservatives are those who are anti-vaxxers. Conservatives are those who pro-Proud Boys. Conservatives are those who are against the January 6th Commission. Conservatives are those who want to cut Medicaid. Conservative are those who say cut taxes for rich, no matter how much is the poor may be left without. So now, if that is the kind of conservative that Franco has, he got some explaining to do. I don't think it's a cakewalk. Even I don't think he can take for granted the 200,000 or 300,000 votes because people know who he is for the same reason that Kenny Brown talked about earlier. COVID has changed the landscape. COVID has at least caused people to stop. Hopefully, it would mean stop and think, but at least stop. And so I hope they stop long enough to ask, what is a conservative? Where do you stand? There's a line that's been drawn politically, and there's no middle ground anymore, right? You may be, if you're part of the conservative bloc, you can't disavow everybody else that's in your same camp and say, I'm not like them, unless you're going to change the label on your own name. If he runs as a conservative, he loses, in my opinion, not just the majority of the black vote, but he's going to lose a significant portion of white folks too. Because
let me ask you a question, Mr. DeShields.
There are people today, I think, who recognize that when you're on the Titanic, everybody drowns. So the idea is not to change seats on the deck of the boat. The idea is to get another vessel.
Let me ask you a question, Mr. Shields. Do you consider Larry Hogan a conservative, or is that a word usually associated with Republican Party? How would you define Larry Hogan?
I would define Larry Hogan as leaning toward what I understand conservatives to be. See, in reality, the only time we're being a liberal, conservative, or Democrat, or Republican, the only time it matters is in the primary. That's the only time. In the general election, it doesn't have any significance at all. Because in reality, what we will find is that many of the people who claim to be liberals and Democrats in the general vote toward the candidate who's leaning toward the conservative side. So I don't, as I said yesterday, there are four things that undermine democracy as we would have it. One is the two-party system, one is closed primaries, and the other is the electoral college. I said four, maybe there are only three. Those things in combination undermine the whole notion of democracy as I believe it was originally intended, and certainly as people understand it to be. So, if you ask Hogan, am I a conservative or I'm liberal? Hogan would probably say, I'm a conservative. But then he would immediately say, if I ask him, well, does that mean you support the Proud Boys? Does that mean that you're against the January 6th Commission? He would say no. So then what does that mean in terms of the label that was given him in the first place? We gotta get rid of labels. We got to get rid of unless somebody's going to take time to define them. And then what we're going to say, trying to find the right definition is like trying to pin the tail on the donkey in the dark.
Well, Bob said something earlier that really triggered a thought in my mind, and it's about elections and the way they're going now. Remember, we want more participation. We want more black folks participating, all right? Well, remember, we did something in the last election that hadn't been done before. Now we're into mail elections. We're in the early voting. We've opened up that process to make it easier for more people to participate. When I think back that it used to all happen on one day, well, that's out the window now. And if Maryland stays with what it stayed with, what it went with in 2020, this idea of being able to mail your ballot in, being able to vote early, being able to have your choice of when you want to go vote and where you want to go vote, I got a feeling that's going to be a game changer. And can we get more participation out of folks because of that? Well, you're giving them a whole lot more options. And I believe that will take and increase those numbers you're talking about. We saw it in Georgia. Early voting is a game changer, but when you put mail into it, I mean, it really changes the game. Where you don't have to leave your home either. Just fill out the ballot and put it in the mailbox. So that's all gonna come into play. And so remember, Maryland just became what? We're a majority minority state now. Am I correct? The numbers dictate that we have more non-white people living in the state of Maryland than we have white people living in the state of Maryland. So this is, so when we talk about who those voters are and where they come from, I say 2022 is going to be an interesting race. And that's why I'm not quick to latch on to the guy that's out in front right now, because I know what could happen here.
Well, I don't like dead air. I don't like dead air.
Yeah.
Also from Montgomery County is John King. So you got John King, Peter Frank Show, all from Montgomery County.
Is there a question?
Yeah.
I'm not sure Montgomery County is going to go with Frank Show.
Well, I think I don't know if we all have our doubts with that, but the idea is, yeah, I don't believe it either. I don't believe it either. He's from Montgomery County, but he's nothing like his county. Nothing like his county.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to show you all some interesting statistic by county.
Well, Franco's probably more like Baltimore County than he is Montgomery County.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Northern Baltimore County.
And the east side too. Yeah.
But I hope that Black voters see the significance of this election. I don't feel it yet. I hope that Wes Moore and Rashawn Baker can inspire, and Daryl Barnes and the Black Legislative Caucus can inspire Black voters to come out to vote, because they need to participate in the process, and that it doesn't have to be a Kamala Harris to be the first this, or Barack Obama to be the first that, or an insurrectionist like Donald Trump that has to be on the ballot to inspire us. But the fact that we need to come out and vote, because it's a duty, and we only are going to begin to see change when we can be counted on to have some significance in the voting on an ongoing basis, not when there's a blip on the screen. That's when we come out.
Right. Well, I mean, I agree with that, and that's going to that's the process of education, and that's precisely, as I said, the last episode of Godfather of Harlem was the ballot or the bullet. If we don't fix it, if those are only two choices, and I believe, so I believe that the ballot will predominate, and so, having people make informed choices. I mean, how do you change the paradigm where Ohio goes Republican and they lost more votes, more jobs under the Republican administration than any other state in the union, but yet they vote that way? I mean, there's a lot of education required among all people, and unfortunately, the objective of most politicians, including my former partner, was simply to get either elected or reelected. And somehow or another, they lose that everything else pales in significance. I remember, when the push for Obama, it's going to be our first Black president. Then he gets elected, and we say it takes him 2 years to meet with the Congressional Black Caucus. It takes him 2 years to talk about what happened in Florida, and so we say, well, why isn't he addressing? And we give him a pass. We say, well, because he's supposed to get reelected. Well, how? If he's not going to act differently, if he's not going to do anything differently, then what was the point of electing a so-called Black president in the first place? I mean, on Black issues, he was as invisible as Kamala is today. Absolutely. So and Perez, to me, the fact that he's an Obama-nite, if that's such a word, means that he the kind of baggage he carries, I'm not interested in even opening the suitcase. I'm done. I'm done with Obama. I'm done with Kamala. I'm done with Perez. I'm done with all the people who is to select title over substance.
Let me just last night is that finally Black elected officials could say Black people without having to whisper, without having to wonder what other people thought about them. I thought that was the psychological victory. A Black agenda, not a minority, not a light skin, not an AKA, not Omega, a Black agenda. And I would add to that an unapologetically Black agenda. Also, we have not talked about this one thing, Mr. DeShields, and that is the role of the Maryland Democratic Party. How could Ben come in here, win over Rashawn Baker, who actually lives here, but yet the Maryland Democratic Party did not support him?
Well, again, you called my name, but you got to address that to somebody who's far more knowledgeable about statistics and politics. I'm an outlier. I'm a dreamer. Okay, I don't. The only reason I look at things as they are today so that I can determine how I want to change them tomorrow.
Okay, well, let's pose it to you, Mr. Kenny Brown. Where's the Democratic Party leadership? Last time around, we had Maya Rocky Moore comments. And more so than a leader, she was promoting her own campaign. It was like a setup, just like Jim Shea ran for lieutenant governor. That was a setup for where he is today.
Well, the Maryland Democratic Party, I have to say that lacks a lot to be desired here right now, and we've had two shots at a governor. A Black governor. And what the Maryland Democratic Party showed me then was that these two individuals have won the primary. And you would have thought that the Maryland Democratic Party, and they say they're a party and they're supposed to support Democrats, right? I didn't see it with Anthony Brown, and I didn't see it with Ben Jealous. They just didn't go out and work the same way they worked when there's others at the top of the ticket. And so it makes me question just how committed the Maryland Democratic Party is when there's a Black at the top of that ticket. So they're going to have to show me a little more than they've showed me in the past, that they're committed to, when we choose through the primary process who our candidate should be, then I want to see all Democrats get behind that candidate, not just the Black Democrat, right? All Democrats.
It is a cautionary tale for you, Mr. DeShields, in relation to Westmore. Please don't make the mistake that Anthony Brown did of bringing in national people. He brought in all of these young people from other states to come to the state of Maryland to tell veteran politicos what to do. They were rude. They were disrespectful. They had no regard for the local at all.
Right.
I don't disagree. And we've had that conversation many times.
Okay. Well, any final thoughts before we close out? This has been a compelling show. You the French surrogate.
I can't hear.
I can't. Yeah, Michael's talking, but
yeah,
we couldn't hear Donnie. Donnie, I couldn't hear you.
What did you say, Donnie?
Any final thoughts?
Okay. Final thoughts.
Well, for me, it's just buckle up and enjoy the ride, man, because this is 22 is going to, I believe it's going to shake the world a little bit. especially here in Maryland. It's a lot of, and I have to speak from Baltimore County's perspective. A lot of change is coming down the pipe, and with change, you know, like Mr. Shields, like Bob said, you know, if you're the dreamer, you know, what's the possibility? Where are we going? Which direction will we get? And
yeah, I just have Westmore, Peter Francho, primary election, Democratic Party, money. You know, is West going to be able to overcome the money aspect, and is he going to be able to galvanize support in districts that usually vote? And moreover, can he get to the number of 225,000 votes in the primary? That's the number, 225. He's got to get to that number.
hey, Michael, where did Ben Jealous get to?
That's the number that Ben got to in the primary. He got to 270. Rashawn Baker did 171,000, and he finished second. So you figure that Rashawn is going to have to add 100,000 votes to his base, being out of pocket for over 4 years. So some things make statistical sense. And to Mr. DeShields' point, does it mean everything? No, but I think there's a roadmap that candidates like Westmore can look at and say, particularly the money. Hogan spent 6-to-1 on media to what Ben Jealous spent in the general, to Donnie's point about the Democratic Party, who should have made up the difference of that 5 million, which is nothing to measly politics. 6-to-1, 6 million to 1 million in media. Ben couldn't get his message out.
You're breaking up terribly on my end. I can't understand anything you're saying.
Yeah, you're breaking up terribly, Donnie.
Rashawn Baker was suspect. That's it. Well, we'll just come back and try. We'll talk to you soon. Good morning, world.